'Twas brillig in the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe, all mimsy were the borogoves and the mromrads outgrabe. Alrighty. Hi everybody, I'm Tommy Scoville. This is the Tommy Scoville Show. Thanks to everybody who has been tuning into the show, and especially to those of you who have opened up in the comment section to talk about your lives. As I said, the real dream of this show is that, not just me, but everyone who is following the show becomes part of the equipment that we're giving you on how to live a better life. So when you open up and you talk about your lives, you do not have to have gone off the edge of the cliff to benefit people. There are great stories of people that pulled back from the cliff. There are people who got close and for whatever reason were able to pull back, and that's a benefit. This is the dream come true for me, and it's happening so early. The number of views that I've been getting are just absolutely blows my expectations for where the show is. You guys are great. Obviously, I lost a lot of views yesterday when I had to delete one of my 2 videos. Hopefully, I'm going to learn this YouTube thing. That's mea culpa. That was my fault. I'm learning as I go, and hopefully, I'm going to get better at this. So when we left off on the story, and again, real quick, this is not just a show about my story, but we're going to get through that so that moving forward, you know exactly who you're following and exactly, who I am. So when we left off, I was just sort of starting down that life of crime. And, in the very beginning, when you start going off of the rails as a junkie, there are several avenues that people take. And again, this isn't a kid's channel. For an awful lot of people, selling your body is really an avenue, especially for women, but it happens for men as well. That was not an avenue I went down. So if you're not prostituting yourself, stealing or being a con man or a con woman or whatever the case may be is usually one of the first things. And I conned everybody. I conned family, business associates. Once I was through with that and I got to the point where there was just no more fruit on that tree, I began to steal. And in the beginning, none of us aspire to that kind of life. So when I first started becoming a criminal, it's something that's new to you. You're not born a thief. And like any other skill, I hate to say it, but it's a skill that you have to learn. And when I first started stealing, believe it or not, people, I started stealing meat. That may sound crazy to you, but if you've been in the life, it is one of the most popular things that junkies steal. And the reason is, stealing is not necessarily the difficult part of being a criminal. Getting money is the difficult part of being a criminal. So taking what it is that you've stolen and turning that into cash is a difficult thing. You have to have a fence, someone that buys everything you steal. Meat, anything that people use constantly becomes something that's probably one of the more popular things. If you can get rid of it without having to find a fence, but just selling it to normal people, that's really popular among people who steal in the life, or boost as it's often called. And I became a booster. Originally started stealing meat, and believe it or not, people, I would go into a grocery store, I would fill a shopping cart, and when I say fill a shopping cart, I'm talking about filling a shopping cart. I would put $1,000, $1,500 worth of meat in a shopping cart and simply push it out the front door. And, when you first start down the road, you don't necessarily really look the part yet. I still very much look like a businessman. And I had a benefit of not, raising attention or ruffling feathers when I walked through the front door. They didn't say, "Here comes a junkie." So I was able to blend in to normal society, and I would steal $1,500 worth of meat, push it out the front door of a shopping cart calmly, and then just take it out to the car, unload it, and go sell. The crazy thing is that if you stole $1,500 worth of steak and go and sell it, which you have to do very quickly because it starts to melt, in a perfect world, you'd like to get $1,500. But someone could go to the store for that. So in order to sell this quickly, normally I would cut the price in half. So you'd steal $1,500 worth of steak, and you got $750, which sounds like a pretty decent amount of money for normal people because a lot of people aren't making that in a week, especially back then. However, I need the same thing the next day. This really started to be a problem because I steal $1,500 worth of meat on Monday, $1,500 worth of meat on Tuesday, $1,500 worth of meat on Wednesday. I'm not exaggerating. This was a daily thing. And I had a $600 a day habit. So every single day I had to do this. And it required hitting one store after another. And I would go from town to town. And further on down the line, I may do story time where, I tell you some of the funnier stories because there are, hindsight being 2020 and looking back through a lens as somebody that is no longer an addict, there are some stories rather that are kind of humorous. I'm not going to do that today. What I'm trying to do is get through my story quickly. The meat thing started to become an issue because to go back to the same person and say, well, I got more meat. I literally would go door to door selling this stuff. And you don't want to do that in nice neighborhoods because in nice neighborhoods, they'll call the cops. So I was in the hood selling to meat to people that really were getting an opportunity to buy stuff that they probably couldn't afford because I was giving it to them at 50 cents on the dollar on Monday. By Friday, you're going back to the same people. And in order to get it sold, now you're selling it for 25 cents on the dollar. And it honestly got to a point where to come up with a daily fix, I was going to have to steal $3,000 worth of meat. Sounds insane, doesn't it? Especially when you consider you've got to do this every single day. So I branched off. I started hitting Home Depots, and I mean often. I would go into Lowe's or Home Depot's hardware stores and do the same thing. I would fill grocery carts or shopping carts full of power tools, saw blades, anything of high value, and then I would go out to job sites and sell these things. Same problem. Steal $1,000 worth of stuff, sell it for $500. Steal $2,000 worth of stuff. Pretty soon, all of the people that you know that will buy this stuff have everything you could possibly give them. Now you're at 25 cents on the dollar. Now you're at 10 cents on the dollar. Also, as you start down that road, your soul and your conscience immediately just start going away. So now on the way to steal, I'm looking at every car, every house. If you had left a bike on your front porch, I stole it. If there was a scooter that didn't have a lock on it, I stole it. Everything that I could grab and sell, I took. If you came over to dinner and you left a purse on a desk, I was going to go through it if you weren't looking. I really hit that level of low. But when it got, and by the way, at this point, I'm getting caught from time to time, and the arrest record started. You know, I probably have been arrested for stealing from stores 20 times, maybe 25 times, been arrested for that. And in the beginning, the legal system in this country, especially if you don't look the part, and you know, if you're going in there and you look like you've never done anything wrong, you can get arrested so many times before they send you to prison. I don't want you to think that I got arrested and went away. I was continually getting arrested. And the first time you pay a fine, the first time they don't even take you to jail. They write you a ticket in the parking lot of the store. But this process starts to gain momentum. And pretty soon it's getting more dangerous. But when it really went off the rails, people, was one day sitting around and saying, it's getting to the point where the hardest part of what I do is selling what I have stolen. And the logical progression became the easiest thing to eliminate that problem would be to just steal money. Since the statutes of limitations are up on some of the crimes, I have no problem discussing them. I robbed a casino in the state of Nevada, and I don't want you to think Ocean's 11. This was a very, very small strip mall style casino next to a grocery store that was more sports book than anything else. There were probably 70 or 80 slot machines in this, digital slot machines, and a lot of TV screens. It was almost like a sports bar for people who gamble in the state of Nevada. And I was walking by, this was the start of the end. I was walking by late night, and I was out with a friend of mine who was also an addict, and he had a little truck. And we were parked a long way from the store. I was going in, I was going to take some meat. We were going to take it back to his house, put it in the refrigerator for the following morning, and get up and go sell it. And as I walked by the casino, the sliding doors opened and the cash register was right by the exit. And I looked at him and I said, go start the truck. And he said, oh man, what are you doing, Tommy? I said, look, just go start the truck. I took a bandana that I had in my pocket, which I used to blot blood with after injecting myself. And I pulled it over my face like guys in the movies. I had this and I pulled the hat down and I walked back. I did a loop. And as I came in, I don't have it on me, but I took my cell phone, which at the time they were fairly small, and I held it so that this part of the cell phone, just ridiculous, but I held it like a gun. And when the door opened, I said to the guy, open the cash register. I'm not playing with you. Open the cash register. And he did. I said, lift up the tray. I want all of the cash in there. And the people in the machines looked up, and only in the state of Nevada, right? Everybody looked up and I said, hey, just go back to what you're doing. And they did. Nobody dialed a number. They all just went back and started hitting the buttons. It wasn't even like I was interesting. Nevada's an amazing state, but, and it's not funny, people. I mean, I realize that what I'm talking about, but hindsight being what it is, looking back on it, I mean, there are things that really strike me as funny now after the time in prison and all I've been through. But that casino started the ball rolling. I walked with a little over $8,000, and that was 12 days or more of my drug of choice. And it was just getting up and calling the dealer. And at that juncture, the selling of drugs in America had changed from you calling a guy that you knew and driving over to his house. Now you call the dispatch number, and this dispatch called one of 4 of his drivers, and they're like McDonald's, or they're like Domino's. Within 15 minutes, somebody shows up and they have the heroin in 1/10 of a gram baggies tied up inside a piece of plastic inside of a balloon. And they would have these in their mouth so that if a cop pulled them over, they'd just swallow them. The balloons would keep it from rupturing in their stomach, and they can pass it back out without hurting themselves. So I would just call this guy in the morning. I had all of this money, and pretty soon, like it always happens, I'm broke again. And I said to the guy that I was working with, that's the way to go. And he said, you're just going to keep robbing casinos? I mean, you're never going to get away with doing this again without getting caught. And people at that point, I moved on to banks. And I know it sounds just insane. And looking back on it, it really was insane. I've jumped out of airplanes. I was an extreme skier. Johnny could tell you stories, but I've jumped off of cliffs 70, 80 feet high on skis. Done a lot of things that really pump adrenaline into your body, but the first time you walk up to the door of a bank, knowing full well you're going to go in and rob it, is a adrenaline dump at a level that I can't explain. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this because the level of depravity that you have to reach in your life to where this is logical, to where you walk up to a bank and say, I'm going in there and I'm getting this money. You're so far gone at this point that your soul isn't recognizable. I hope I'm conveying this, because the level of adrenaline that I'm talking about sends anybody in even remotely their right mind back to the car, right? They turn around and go, what the hell am I thinking? In order to be able to go, okay, I'm going in, I'm going to go do this, the drugs have taken over at a level that can't be explained. And that's where I was at. I don't want this to be a lesson on how to rob a bank. So I don't necessarily want to get into excruciating detail, but I will tell you some things. I will tell you that when you rob a bank and you say, okay, give me the money, you're going to leave with about $3,000, which is terrifying the first time it happens to you, because you assume after watching all of the movies that you're going to get $500,000 and you're going to be set forever. But that drawer's got about $3,000 in it. So what you do is you start to do some research and you start to learn. And I learned that there were certain tellers that had an awful lot more money than others. And I learned that you said, give me the top drawer and the bottom drawer. The bank will give you what you ask for. They will not fight you. They're told to give you the money, let the FBI handle it. So I got good at what I was doing. I'm not going to tell you the number of banks that I robbed, but it was certainly more than a couple. And I didn't get caught for a period of time, and robbing banks was ideal because it got to a point where an average haul was in the ballpark of $15,000 to $20,000. And this is done correctly. I now got to the point where I could stretch that for well over a month, because instead of going and buying, $100 worth of heroin from the guy, I would buy everything he had. Now, you couldn't buy it in chunk back then. They controlled the market so tightly that even if you had $5,000, they were just going to give you a bag of those little balloons this big. But I started buying bags of balloons that big and getting a slight discount. Then I would go home, I would break those balloons in half, I would retie them, and I didn't become a dealer, but I certainly started to offset what I was doing by selling bags to other individuals. And in doing so, one bank could probably keep me going for about a month and a half, in a perfect world, 2.5 months, which was, ideal. Unfortunately, from a junkie standpoint, the chemistry in the brain goes so wrong that, you pay your rent, you do the things that you absolutely, are a necessity to do. And then you start doing stupid things as well. Like, you have that money in your pocket and you start buying things that you straight don't need, just plain stupid. And at the end of 2 months, you're pawning them or you're selling them. If you knew how many times, even in the fit of addiction, I would buy myself an expensive watch. And the reason, looking back on it now, was a good watch to me was always symbolism of I'm not lost, right? I got this much money on my wrist. This was a symbol that my life was in control. Now it's a symbol for me that nothing is more valuable in the world than time. It's the one thing you can't buy, steal, or get any more of, right? What you have is what you have. And the beautiful thing about where I'm at today is that I don't waste a second. I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you, I don't waste a second. I watch sunrise and I watch sunset. Grass between your toes. The thing with being incarcerated in Elwood and any of the other guys or ladies that have been locked up can tell you, freedom is wasted on the free. The number of people who walk around every single day, people listening to my voice right now who have no appreciation for what a gift it is to be free. I'm not telling you that me being locked up was something that shouldn't have happened. It absolutely should have happened. But the gift that I got from that, other than a lot of education, was I don't take freedom for granted. I don't take 1 minute of being able to control my own life for granted. So where we're ending right now is my first bank robbery. And I'm going to, in the next video, I'm going to go through my history of a bank robber and probably a chunk of my time in prison. If all goes well, people, within the next 3 to 4 videos, hopefully 3, this segment is done. I don't want to do half-hour shows because I don't feel like people can sit through half-hour videos of me, but I want to get through the Tommy story so that we can start to move on to the nuts and bolts of addiction, some theories that you probably haven't heard about that really sort of dictate what's going on in our lives. And it's not that you didn't hear about them because I'm a genius and no one else is. The reason that these books are not really prevalent is they go away from the model of treatment. And the treatment model, make no mistake, is a business, right? The people who are in it are in rehabilitation, and anyone who's been through a lot of it will back this up. The first thing they're going to tell you is mom and dad screwed up. In spite of the fact that I'm one of 4 children and the other 3 are killing it, somehow mom and dad screwed up. I'm here to tell you right now, if you've been through that system and you're blaming your addiction on anything other than yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. Man, own it. Own your mistakes. We've all had some struggles. We've all had tough lives. And I can go through story after story of young girls who were raped by their uncles, had children and had to give them up. And the trauma that is, right? The Oprah Winfreys, The people that endured this and make $50 million a year. So what's the difference between the Oprahs and the people that stick needles in their arm and spend the rest of their life blaming whatever circumstance that happened for where they're at? We're going to talk about that in greater detail. I promise you. Stick with the story time so I can get through this and we can get on to some of the nuts and bolts, some of the different theories, because the business model of the treating of addiction does not do anyone who's addicted a service. I apologize for the length of this video, fam. If you like what I'm doing, please continue to hit like. I love that. If you don't, let me know. You can, I can take a down thumb as well as I can take an up thumb. Continue to leave comments because your comments are doing so much for so many. As much as I'm doing sitting here in front of this camera, your comments are helping to change lives. That's the dream of this show. And before I end, the one thing I want to say is this. If you feel like calling the dealer or you feel like heading off to the liquor store or anything else, you can find people to talk to in our comment section who are going to do more for your sobriety and your mental health than most people you're going to find in the treatment community. I'm going to ruffle feathers with that, but it's a fact. So don't be shy. Come into the comment section and tell people you're having a bad day and watch what the people who are part of this will do for you, because this is a community like no other. Really, this is what social media can be. I love all of you, and please don't forget the best is yet to come. Your best days are in front of you. I don't care where you're at today. The best is yet to come. I am Tommy Scoville. This is the Tommy Scoville Show. Thanks for tuning in. And tomorrow night, 6:30, same bat channel, same bat time. God bless you all.